Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another market close. It is January 8th, 3:45 p.m. And oh boy, what a day are we having. This is one of those days that's just exciting to be invested in the equity markets, the crypto markets. This is one of those days where you're like, oh, wow, the market can do very interesting things if we kind of sit back and just let the market do the interesting things that it does. Top headline news. We got a lot to talk about. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot going on. Nvidia is at all-time highs. It is, in fact, it has blown past all-time highs, up almost 7% of the day, $520. A lot of announcements they made. I even forgot that CES was this morning and that they were making announcements. So when they were ripping in the morning, I was kind of confused why, because it was more than the other big seven. But obviously those announcements the market anticipated were going to be very important. We got to talk about that. Bitcoin hit $47,000 a coin. Currently, right now, as I look at Bitcoin, we're at 46,940. So right at the level, up 7.5% in a day. We are up $3,300 currently on Bitcoin. And as a result of that, the miners have gone stronger. CleanSpark up 6.32% of the day. Robinhood up 4% of the day. Palantir is at 1665. Palantir at one point was at 1680. So the Bitcoin I guess excitement, ETF approvals, which we'll also talk about. Cathie Wood is on CNBC giving her thoughts on ETFs. That is also getting the market very excited, which is why we've got a pretty green day. I also launched the website today, macrodarts.com. So far on the Twitter account, we have 700 followers on this account. Right now we have 791 followers, which is it is humbling beyond imagination. I cannot say thank you enough. Growing a Twitter account is very difficult. Twitter is a very competitive platform. So for those that have followed on Twitter, thank you so much. I'm putting the website right here. We're going to actually use the website in a little bit to talk about Bitcoin as well. Bare bones, basic economic news, very simple. Don't have to sign up, don't have to register, always going to be free. No clickbaits, no headlines. Hopefully you get to use it every single day and it replaces some of the other stuff you go to for information because it's there every day, multiple times a day, updated with the economic information that's going on in the world. All right. And honestly, what better day could I have picked to launch? I did not think the market was going to go straight up. And usually when the market goes up, people are just a little bit happier. And so when you launch a product or service and you want people to pay attention to it, well, if the market's going up and that product or service is associated with the market, people tend to pay a little bit of attention. So this was really cool to launch it on today. I had no idea that the market, someone tweeted, they're like, can you launch something every day so that the market keeps going up? And I was like, well, not at that level yet, but maybe one day. All right, so let's get into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most important news of the day, and we'll talk about that right now. First off, I'm just going to let Cathie talk, okay? I'm going to let Cathie talk. She was on CNBC. Let's get her perspectives on what's going on with the ETF, and then I'll give all the news that I've been compiling today around Bitcoin.
Wabner, how are you? Welcome to Halftime Report. It's good to see you again. I have a couple of questions for you. A rough last week, obviously, but an incredible end of the year. Obviously, it seems as though the Innovation Fund specifically is tracking the movement of the 10-year yield. First off, I mean, do you expect that that's the way it's just going to be for the foreseeable future?
I think algorithmic trading has taken us there, high frequency trading. But at some point, we think we've been in very many markets. For example, 2017, when interest rates were moving up, our flagship strategy was up 85%. So algorithms have gotten a hold of the market, we think, in the last couple of years, increasingly. But if we are right, interest rates are going to continue down. We think we're moving into a period of deflation, prices actually falling, oil prices today being a good catalyst there. And we think interest rates, if you look at where the long-term treasury ended up 5% in October, and you map that against the ratio of metal prices to gold prices, you know, they had been tracking, the correlation was very tight for the last, well, since 2009. And they parted company big time last year, 5%. That ratio would suggest that long-term treasury yields should be down closer to 2%. Now, maybe
right now they're at 3.9.
Maybe the truth will be somewhere in between, but we do believe that long rates overshot and that they have and that they are on the way down.
I want to ask you about portfolio management because I look at so many of your top 10 holdings are up just tremendous amounts over the last 3 months. Really, you know, the rally from the end of October to the end of the year.
Let me get this actual clip, guys. This is the clip where she starts talking more about Bitcoin. So let me just share this one instead. Here's her talking about actually the ETF.
Kathy, you were around. It was the Winklevoss twins who filed for the first Bitcoin ETF. It was 2013, as I recall, and I think it took until 2017 for the SEC to reject that application along with all the others. Do you believe your application will be approved, and why do you think so, and what kind of negotiations have been in with the SEC about this? Give us a sense of where we are.
Sure. Well, we do think the probability is very high that that Bitcoin ETFs will be approved this week. And the reason, as we've been saying, is, the SEC actually, after, denying a number of times, started asking questions, very good questions, very detailed questions, very technical questions. So I think they've asked all the questions they need answered, and I think most of us have probably been a part of that, process.
So she's correct here. The technicalities that the SEC has asked now have resulted in the 19B4 forms being sent in, S1s being registered. I've looked at Bloomberg, I've looked at CNBC, I've looked at Yahoo Finance. I mean, all of these guys are reporting that these ETFs are going to be improved. CNBC said it should be as early as Wednesday, and then they start trading on Thursday. Which is really, really exciting if this ends up happening. I forgot to do roll call and say everybody's name because I've been so excited. So let's do that real quick, and then we'll get back into the Bitcoin news. Midwest, Nick, Matt Blake, Trucker Rob, Inbound, David K, Yeti, Kevin Smith. We got Kelly, big fan of the hat. Thank you for being here. Lars, Garcia, Ray, Broccoli Bob, Daryl, Yeti, Heinz, Star Buccaneers, Breakfast Pizza, Scott, Brandon, Aztec, Toshi, Theo, Alex Rivera, Billy. Of course, we can start now because Billy's here. We can never start. Good afternoon, brother. I'm here. We can start the show. Of course, Billy, you got to be here, and that's how we can start. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so in the context of this ETF, let's go to macro darts and let's see a little bit of the updates we got on the ETF and why this is happening right now. So if we look at this right here, 8 a.m. Monday today was the deadline to submit their S1s. This is the thing you have to file when you launch anything that's on the public markets. That happened today. SEC is voting on these forms, 19B4s. The ETFs could start trading the next day if both these the S1s and the 19Bs are approved. That's from Bloomberg. BlackRock has lowered their ETF fees to 0.30%. ARK has lowered their fee to 0.25%. These management fees end up hurting consumers because they're not, getting the full amount of what they're paying for when they buy these ETFs. Estimations were that there were going to be more than 2% on these fees. Now they're below 1%, and they're competing with each other in terms of the big institutions and the big sort of ETF holders to make sure that consumers pick the BlackRock one over the ARK one. And there's really no reason to pick one or the other. Like, they both own the same asset. It's Bitcoin, right? So it's like, it's kind of just like you have to figure out a way to really get consumers' attention here for it to make sense. And then global banking giant Standard Chartered came out with a report today, a really long kind of thesis around what these ETFs could do. Their argument is 50 to 100 billion could flow into Bitcoin ETFs in 2024 alone. And their argument is that gold and the run-up it had over the past 8 years after their ETF was approved is going to be nothing like Bitcoin's run, because Bitcoin just has so much more volatility and so much more excitement around it. So there's a lot of money that could be coming into Bitcoin very soon. And as a result of that, people are excited over what's going on when it comes to BTC. We'll talk about Nvidia after the bell. Let's keep focusing on Bitcoin. And then after the bell, we've got a lot to talk about on Nvidia. I asked the morning stream who's invested in Nvidia. And apparently a lot of people have Nvidia from like $100, $200. Did not expect that, but a lot of people are holding Nvidia. So if you're holding Nvidia, I mean, today was a hell of a day to you, dude. It's not easy to get a stock like that up 6% at $520. We'll talk about that more, but Nvidia had a pretty good day. Okay, so let's look at some of the other Bitcoin associated stocks. Robinhood up about 4.25% of the day, $10.7 billion market cap. Half their market cap is still cash. Very exciting company. 13.4 million shares traded. Again, this is only because Bitcoin is going higher. That is, that I can acknowledge that as a bull. Like, that is the reason why Robinhood is going up right now. And it's the reason a lot of these stocks are going up right now. Truist Regional Bank trying to close in on $38, $37.96. Regionals were poised to have a really good year. KRE up almost 1% of the day. Regionals obviously got destroyed last year in 2023. And if there's not going to be a banking crisis and interest rates are going to come down and those losses on their loans are going to get off their books, then these regional banks are going to go higher. And that is the thesis that's kind of playing out right now in regionals. Let's go to the watch list for crypto, because I learned today how to make a watch list on Webull. So here we go. Crypto. Bitcoin up 7%, Ethereum up 6.7%, Ride up 7%, Marathon up 7%, Hut 8 Mining down 0.92%, Cypher up 2%, and Iris up 4%, Coinbase up 3%, CleanSpark up 5%. Now, here's the Bitfarms, by the way, up 10%. Here's the interesting one. MicroStrategy is down 5%. Okay. Now, why is this happening, right? MicroStrategy owns the most amount of Bitcoins out of any public company. You would argue that if Bitcoin's up 7%, MicroStrategy should be up somewhat, according to that. There's two reasons. Number one, MicroStrategy was apparently trading at a pretty decent premium towards Bitcoin when you just do the math over the past couple months, given MicroStrategy had run, I think, 3.85x in 2023. And as a result of that, it was trading at a healthy premium, and maybe the market's selling that off a little bit. Second of all, I mean, it's pretty obvious. The market wants to allocate some capital into ETFs. And so instead of investing in MicroStrategy, which Michael Saylor has described as basically a Bitcoin ETF, his argument is like, well, why don't we take that capital and allocate it somewhere else? Or other fund managers' argument is, well, we've got a lot out of MicroStrategy, but we might as well just invest in the ETF versus the business of MicroStrategy that is posing as an ETF. I don't think this is necessarily that big of a deal for MicroStrategy. I think they'll be fine as Bitcoin keeps going higher. But in general, if you got to allocate capital either to the ETF or MicroStrategy, you might as well pick an ETF versus have to deal with the business of MicroStrategy, because no one's buying the business for the business, right? MicroStrategy is growing at 3% year over year. They had revenues of $120 million last quarter. Like, it's not a growing business. You buy it for Bitcoin at the end of the day. And as a result of that, we are seeing some volatility there when it comes to MicroStrategy. We got about 3 minutes till the market close. After the market close, we've got to talk about Nvidia. We've got to talk about Tesla up 1.24% of the day. We're going to be talking about Palantir. Palantir had a massive new partnership today. For those that missed that news, we'll discuss a little bit more on that and why that partnership is continuing to or probably led to the rise in Palantir today. I mean, I know the macro was really good, but I think that partnership it's going to allow the market to see a little bit more about what AIP can do if they follow it up with more partnerships. But it was a really good example 8 days into 2024 on where AIP is growing, and that healthcare vertical is continuing to go higher. Snapchat, good old Snappy Chat, up 4.3% of the day. You guys know my history with Snapchat. Saw it at $8, saw the options at $8. I said on this live stream I should buy it, but then I told myself no, because everyone's going to make fun of me. And that's where peer pressure got to the best of me, because I should have bought the damn options on Snapchat since it went from 8 to 17. Now I am not bullish on Snapchat because I think it's run up a little too high. And look, even if the market rewards it more, Snapchat's just, it's too, there's not enough margin of safety to legitimately try to make an investment there. But Snapchat is up 4%. And when Snapchat's up 4% in a day, I mean, the day is just really good. I mean, I'm struggling to find any red. You got Google, that's green. Roku, where's the NASDAQ? Oh, NASDAQ right below 15,000, but still NASDAQ at a healthy level. By the way, in 2 minutes, if we close above 468 on the S&P 500, which, as you can see, the S&P 500 right now is 474, well, we will have avoided catastrophe in the equity markets. And the catastrophe I'm talking about is Tom Lee's thesis, which I went over this morning, which is that if the S&P closes more than 1.1% in the first 5 trading days, just the first 5 trading days, not the 6 trading days, 7 trading, the first 5 trading days, historically, 78% of the time, the rest of the year ends 8%. If we close above that, the rest of the year on average ends 10.7%. So we really need it on January 8th. And Tom Lee made a big, he literally said January 8th is one of the most important days to look at. We need it to not end below 468. Right now we're at 474. We got 30 seconds left. Anything can happen, but it seems safe to say that we have saved the year because the S&P is not falling below 468. So we'll see what happens. We got about 20 seconds left to market close. But we will see if the thesis for 2024 is still intact. This is going to be an exciting market close, just seeing how everything ends. And then we got a lot to talk about. We'll talk about JP Morgan, their expectation for rate hikes as well going into 2024, and a little bit more in terms of when those rate hikes are happening. And then we got some more macro news I want to discuss in regards to the 10-year. All right, folks, it is 4 p.m. Monday, January 8th. The stock market is now closed. All right, stock market's closed. What do we got? S&P 500. Davis, thank you for being here. I see you in the chat. S&P 500, 474. We have avoided a cataclysmic apocalypse by not being at 468 on the S&P. By the way, 474, I think we started the year at 472. Are we up for the year? I think we're up for the year. Yeah, I think we're up for the year. Where we were at, yeah, Yeah, literally. The top on January 2nd, when trading began in 2024, was 473. We have ended higher today than we started in January. And look at where we went through. We went to 466. So it's a nice little V shape right here in terms of the S&P 500. What a day. I mean, what a day for us to close higher. I didn't even notice that in the January 2nd close. What an absolute day. This is pretty exciting. Okay, let's see what else we got. Nvidia, we'll talk about them in a second. KRE up 1% of the day. CleanSpark up about 5% of the day. Robinhood ended about 4.46% of the day. Palantir ended 4.3% of the day. Palantir got all of the gains that they lost on the oddly suspiciously timed Jeffries report. That's all I'll say. It was very suspicious the way that timing came out. It was like, it blew my mind that it came out randomly that day versus on the days when Palantir was rolling up to $20. But nonetheless, we recovered the gain. So Brent Thill can go back to writing some bear theses because so far we are not at that $13 price target. Truist, $38. We closed on the dot. Look at that. 1.05% of the day closing right on the dot for Truist. Bitcoin falling down a little bit, 46,735. Some profits are being taken right here, still up 7% of the day. It's going to be very important to see if we can maintain 46,000. I mean, like holding that level is going to be important over the next couple of weeks. So let's see if we can get there. We were stuck from 40 to 44, really like barely hit 45 a couple times for the past 3 weeks. If we can actually consolidate at 46, we can probably get to the next like higher. 48 is a little bit of resistance. So let's see what happens with Bitcoin. Twilio ended up 6.63%. They ousted their CEO today, and they made a guy named Jeff Epstein the board executive chair. I can't make this up. That's what happened. Coinbase ended 3% up on the day. MicroStrategy down about 5% on the day. Amazon is up on the day. Tesla's up on the day. Google 140 up 2.2% on the day. Look at the Qs. Look at the Qs. Look at the Qs. The Qs 404.95 up 2% on the day. Absolutely incredible on the Qs. Qs are up, baby. Qs are up. If you own the Qs, you are doing well today. Qs are now higher than where they closed, 54% to end 2023. As SoFi up 3.7% of the day. SoFi got some love. Amazon is up. Apple is up 2.42%. Again, 2% on Apple is a big, big deal. Apple's a very big company. You don't just move that company 2% on a day. Main news is Macro, but also Vision Pro is coming February 2nd. You can pre-order January 19th. So if you've got $3,500, feel free to pre-order it on January 19th. I don't know why you would want to pre-order something for $3,500 on January 19th, unless you're an absolute fanboy. But if you did do that, then you will be helping Apple stock. And God knows I've helped Apple stock. I bought a MacBook Pro. I bought an iPad Pro. I've did my work for Apple shareholders, even though I don't own this stock. So Apple's doing well. Walgreens was up today about 2.4%. Verizon down a little bit, but still in the $40 range. Celsius was up about 1.52%. It was down 4% in the pre-markets, or as soon as the market opened. So that recovered. Most stocks that were down, they recovered as well. And they continue to inch higher. AMD at 146. They were up 5.48% of the day, primarily following Nvidia. Let's talk about Nvidia now. Let's talk about Nvidia. Let me do a quick question from the chat. Breakfast Pizza says, do you see that person that mentioned Bitcoin in the white paper responded to us on a tweet a few days ago, Adam Black, and he could be Satoshi, creator of Proof of Work? Look, I have no idea who is Satoshi. For all we know, I could be Satoshi. Okay. And I've been bearish on Bitcoin for the past couple of months just to, get you guys to believe that I'm not Satoshi. So I don't know if is it even worth philosophically debating who's Satoshi anymore. From Michael Saylor's perspective, I heard him on a podcast this week, and his argument was like Satoshi provided a gift to humanity, which was Bitcoin, and I think he wanted to be anonymous for that reason. Power corrupts, and especially the fame and the influence. Ultimately, it consolidates and centralizes power, and that's not the point of Bitcoin. And so I think his entire thesis was, from my little understanding of Satoshi's philosophy, that he wanted to do something different for humanity, and that was the nature of why he did this. So I don't really stress about who he is, because to be honest, I could be him. Maybe we all are Satoshi in some way. That was so cheesy. All right. Anyway, Nvidia. Let's talk about Nvidia. Nvidia is up 6% on the day. Now, why is Nvidia up? There's a couple of announcements they made today. You can see the stock right now, 523 after hours. Just doing incredible. John says, I think Satoshi is just the Mitt and Kelly's relationship. That's well, that's maybe that's it. Philip says, admit it, has zero idea who Adam Back is. No, I know that it's a guy named Adam and he has a back. Okay, so that's and I'm pretty sure this guy named Adam does indeed have a back. So you can't say I don't know who Adam Back is. Okay, so Nvidia announced hybrid computing for new AI applications. They announced Nvidia GeForce RTX 40 Super Series GPUs. And they announced NVIDIA Isaac and generative AI for robots. These are the three big things they announced. TLDR, essentially, they're allowing consumer PCs to have somewhat of the same power that these large companies, Fortune 500 companies, are buying from Nvidia. So like the extent of the announcement, and again, I got to look more deep into it, but it's like they're allowing manufacturers that make personal computers to have the same type of capacity that like a Snowflake would buy in terms of like enterprise level GPUs in order to run all the stuff that they're doing in a personal computer. Now, it's not going to be exactly at the same level, but that's very exciting because it's exciting because when you think about gaming, that is huge in terms of individuals being able to run their own games on their own personal computers and the levels of sophistication in those graphic cards. And on top of that, if you're just doing video editing, I mean, high-level movie editors, just people that are doing anything on these computers, they're getting better and better and better. The rate at which AI is innovating obviously is geometric and exponential. And that's why we're seeing a lot of momentum in the stock today, because investors are like, well, the potential of this just means that the growth is not stopping. And if the growth is not stopping, then do we really want to, sell off Nvidia even though it's ran up as much as it's run in 2023? Here's a good chart by Beth Kindig. I actually recommend following her. She runs a fund called IO Fund. Just really good content, like really, really great stuff. I mean, it's stuff that I want macro darts one day to be able to emulate in terms of just raw data, good stuff in my feed. Just not a reason to unfollow her. So her argument is that 2023 is going to have 5 main stocks. Nvidia is one of those main stocks. They project revenue to increase 118% to $58.8 billion, followed by 54% growth to $90 billion in full year 2025. So you're looking at 2 years of 118% year-over-year growth and then 54% growth, which is still incredible. It's this growth at such scale that has driven Nvidia's outsized returns this year. And obviously the announcements we got today project that this return is not stopping. So then the question becomes, okay, Nvidia does $58 billion in revenue. I think they did like $34 billion in revenue last year. A couple years ago, they were doing $6 billion of revenue. Now they're doing about $6.8 billion a quarter. Data center revenues is about 80% of that, or it's about 10 billion TTM out of the entire 30 billion. So about 30% of that is purely just data center revenue. Look, you got to ask yourself, where's the market going to price a company that's growing 118% year over year in a world in which Apple can barely grow? Google's growing simple double digits, and Meta's growing, maybe 15% year over year. 118% year over year growth is not sustainable, but it's happening. And if it's happening, that is why Nvidia is up today. That is why Nvidia is up today. Inbound says Tesla already has $93 billion in revenue. That is true. And the story on Tesla is very interesting because Tesla is the same valuation it was in 2020, even though they 3x their revenues. But the street is not excited about Tesla. Nvidia had a higher market cap, 1.29 trillion versus 800 billion for Tesla. You could argue that Tesla's potential is far beyond Nvidia. I mean, like at the end of the day, Tesla is Tesla. That bot, I keep thinking about it as well, just in terms of that is a single source of truth for why you buy the stock if you are really long-term bullish on Tesla. So can Nvidia become a $10 trillion company? I don't know. Maybe. Can Tesla become a $10 trillion company? I think yes, even if it's going to take another 10, 20 years. Like you would just imagine, given how Tesla operates, there's so many ways where that becomes the case, on top of the whole dojo stuff, which is going to reduce their reliance on Nvidia. At the end of the day, if Nvidia can't keep up these growth numbers because everyone maxes out on their chips and their GPUs, then the growth will stop. Tesla, you would imagine that everyone in the entire world can buy a car and that these robots can be available all over the world, and then FSD, right? Like, so I am more bullish Tesla than Nvidia, but Nvidia's growth is just absolutely phenomenal. And that's why we've seen a lot of momentum when it comes to Nvidia. Tarek says, if you invested $1,000 in Nvidia 10 years ago, you would have $132,000. Let me give you another stat. If you invested $100 in Nvidia 10 years ago, you would have $13,200. Not only is that 1/10 of your tweet, but Kelly tweeted that today as well. So I was able to steal her tweet to give you guys some juicy content on the gains you have missed out on Nvidia, including myself 10 years ago. Now, 10 years ago, I don't think I could buy stocks. How old was I? Yeah, I was 16. I don't think I could buy stocks. Granted, I probably should have been. I should have been more interested in the market 10 years ago, like all of us. I started, I think, at like 19 years old, but didn't really have any understanding of the market, I think, until 26. It took like a real 7 years to have any understanding of what's going on in the market. If we all started earlier, I think we all would have made our mistakes earlier. So that is one thing to keep in mind. If you invested $100 10 years ago, you would have had 13,000 in Nvidia today. Did that beat the S&P 500? Just by a little bit. Just by a little bit. Okay, so we talked about Nvidia. We talked about this Bitcoin ETF. Let's take a look at where Bitcoin is right now. We've got a couple other things that I want to talk about. Bitcoin, 46,950. Again, trying to inch up to and close at that 47,000 level, or not close because Bitcoin never closes. That's why it's so magical. But like get above that 47,000 $100,000 level. We talked about the ETFs. They're likely going to happen this week. I mean, it seems inevitable. That's why we saw the 7% increase in the price today. Let's take a look at what JP Morgan has to say about rate cuts. They are becoming a little bit more bullish on when these, or sorry, not necessarily bullish, but more accepting that these rate cuts are going to happen. But they're saying it's probably going to be second half of the year. So let's get an update on that. And then we'll talk some more macro news from this morning. Here we go.
What the road ahead for your money might look like with earnings season about to get underway, and so much more ahead as well. Let's ask AJ Oden, JP Morgan Private Bank Global Investment Strategist, with me here at Post 9. It's good to see you. Welcome back.
Good to see you too, Scott.
Interesting move we are seeing today in the market after a pretty rocky road last week. What do you make of how this year started?
Well, I think the way that this year started is we saw a lot of optimism priced in last year in those last 2 months, November, December. And then when you add to the fact that the Fed sort of came out with their SEP, adding in a little bit more rate cuts, what we've been seeing lately is the market's really trying to figure out how many cuts we're going to have this year. And for us, we believe that equities will see all-time highs at the end of 2024. And the reason for that is we believe that technology will have a pretty strong year. And that'll sort of add to that tailwind that we're seeing in equities into the end of the year.
All right, so a couple things there. Number one, rate cuts. When do you think we're going to get the cuts? Do you think we're going to get as many as the market has seemingly priced in to this point? And is that the reason why you think we're going to new highs? Just don't fight the Fed.
Well, I think the market is priced in a little bit too much optimism. 6 rate cuts, I think, is what we're seeing priced in. And I think the expectation is about 50% for a March cut. We believe it probably won't see it until like June, but we're not taking March completely off the table. We're looking at about 125 basis points of cuts.
Okay, now technology, that's the interesting conversation. Do you think that is going to be the leadership group yet again?
I don't necessarily think it's the leadership group, but we think investors should continue to lean into technology stocks, especially driven by AI. And so I know everybody saw a lot of that optimism last year, but if we think about it, if we go back to the peak of technology in 2021, and we look at where tech stocks are today, the Magnificent Seven, they're actually only 7% above the peaks that we saw before. And so if you think about that, 2021 hadn't even priced in the AI move. And so if we think about AI and what we saw from the mid to late 90s and the contribution of private investment in intellectual property and how that contributed to steady growth in GDP, if we see that similarly in AI, then we believe this is a multi-year. This is not just a one-year trend.
So you look, it's a hell of an argument. It's a hell of an argument. A couple things I want to break down there. What he's saying right there is exactly what Nvidia started off their keynote with today, which is this statement that they've been steadfast on, which is generative AI is a bigger opportunity than the internet. Now, I don't even know exactly what that means. I can't sit here and actually say I understand that statement, because when I think of the internet, I think of billions of people connected via a connection, right? Connected via connection. Yeah, it's a beautiful analysis. But like that, you know, you can go to facebook.com. The .com allows you to access the internet, and then boom, there's trillions of dollars of value that is created because of that. Generative AI being bigger than the internet, I don't even fully understand what that means. But apparently the biggest tech companies in the world understand that opportunity. So what he's saying right there from a stocks perspective is that Mag 7 is still lower. Some of them, but well, I think like 4 out of 7 of them are lower than where they were at the bubble of 2021. Now, why was it a bubble in 2021? Because AI wasn't a thing. AI was a thing, but it wasn't really a thing, right? There was no ChatGPT. So we had the NASDAQ at 16,000. You had Amazon at 180. You had Google at 160 at the height of 2021. And market did not price in any of this AI stuff that was going on. So from that perspective, you think about revenue growth, you think about earnings growth, you think about all this AI stuff coming into play. Boom, you've got a bull thesis for why these stocks should go higher. The earnings will prove it. And as a result, because they take up the majority of the S&P 500 and the QQQs, you know, major indices should go higher as well. And one thing that's very important here, I've been experimenting with LLMs. I've been talking about there for a while. Going to launch something soon into the future, kind of showing what I've been learning around with LLMs. It is actually deflationary. The level of sophistication in terms of how AI reduces a workload and allows you to operate, just in terms of like my daily work and things that I'm doing throughout the day and how I'm using ChatGPT and things of that nature. If you're not using ChatGPT every day, you probably don't understand it. But if you are like legitimately using it every day, if I become more productive, I get to do more things, which means Amit, the person, gets to make more money, which means if Amit, the person, is making more money, Amit is investing into the stock market, Amit is investing in other services, he's paying for all these other subscriptions. All this economic stimulus kind of happens as a result of this massive technological deflation because of productivity gains. And that's what I think the market is betting on. The question is, are we going to see those productivity gains? And if we're not going to see it, then all of this is a flop. But if we are going to see it, and based on my personal anecdotal experience, I think we're going to see it. These stocks are still cheap over the next 5 years. And so it's going to be really exciting. And then you got Palantir. That's, not even $100 billion market cap. And then you think about where Palantir can go. It gets really exciting. Speaking of Palantir, let's talk Palantir. Let's talk Palantir. Bitcoin right now, 46,955. Palantir announced a new partnership today. Green on the day, up 4%. This partnership was very exciting. I'm going to be talking more about it in the newsletter today. It'll come out around 8 p.m. at dailypalantir.substack.com. If you're not subscribed, free email newsletter. But what Palantir announced today was essentially operationalizing AI through a company that is a very interesting company. It's not the Plascreds of the world. It's not the HISAs of the world. No offense to HISA, but no one knew the Horse Integrity Safety Association was a thing. Okay. Palantir partnered with a $6 billion public company. I'm pulling it up right now. And this company does $4.2 billion in TTM, in recurring revenues, right? So you've got a company that's not a big, that's a pretty big deal. OPCH, let me pull up their ticker right now, actually, so you guys can see them on the screen. OPCH up 1.9% of the day, $5.8 billion market cap. They're doing about $4 billion in revenue. They are, think of them as DoorDash for personalized healthcare at your home infusion services. That is what they do. Palantir, I mean, like the basic argument is that they're bringing large language models and other cutting AI technology to be leveraged across OPCH, improving patient outcomes and increasing efficiency. Supply chain execution, purchasing optimization, nurse scheduling, other potential use cases, patient onboarding, etc., staffing. There's a lot of shit that they're doing. The CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp, says, Option Care Health is at the leading edge of deploying AI across the healthcare sector. We are proud to support this effort, which builds on our expanding presence and commitment into the medical sector and will expedite and improve services to patients across the United States. Palantir is already powering 16% of beds in the United States of America. Option Care Health, a huge leading provider of personalized home infusion therapy and services, you've got more beds that ultimately become powered by Palantir as they leverage AIP. Now, the reason I thought this was really interesting, my basic analysis here is that maybe healthcare is the vertical that Palantir has to win in order for them to start expanding to other verticals, right? Like, I think go-to-market is very difficult for every company. We can't expect Palantir to win every single vertical. We can't expect them to be number one in manufacturing, energy, healthcare, et cetera. But if they pick one over the next 2 years, and that doesn't mean they neglect the others, but if they just hone in on one and they really capture the AI healthcare market, could that increase top line revenue growth to upwards of 25%? And then could that set them up to get massive deals? Because if they're working in healthcare, then you got all these other compounding network effects by seeing other companies that want their services in different verticals. Maybe. Now, I think they're going to try to do both at the same time, right? I know it's pedal to the metal. They're trying to figure that out. But they partner with Cardinal Health, the UK's NHS, Novartis, Concordance, National Institute of Health, Merck KGA, Tampa Bay General, Cleveland Clinic, HCA Healthcare. And then you got Option Patient Care Health. A Cleveland Clinic and Tampa Bay General are nothing compared to OPCH. I mean, just in terms of the size of them, those companies aren't even public, right? So we're talking about really, really big deals, and it just seems like healthcare is going to be that vertical that works out. Douglas says, what you don't know about HISA is because I'm poor. Only the very wealthy people own racehorses. Very wealthy people know what HISA is, the top 1%ers. I can't argue with that. I am probably poor compared to the top 1%ers of the United States of America. Maybe not forever, but at this stage of my life, yes. And I didn't know what HISA was because I don't race fucking horses. That's not. And by the way, if I was rich, I don't think I would race horses. Now, maybe I'm saying this as someone who's not rich, but if I was rich, I'm not buying a Rolex, I'm not buying a Mercedes, and I'm not buying a horse. Those are the three things I'm buying more Palantir stock. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't know what fun thing I would buy. Put in the chat. What would be the fun thing you buy when you're rich? I mean, like, I'm trying to genuinely think, what is the fun thing I would buy if I'm rich? Maybe basketball jerseys. Like, I like basketball jerseys. I only have one and I want to get others, but they're like $300 a jersey. I'm not paying $300 like for a real jersey, not like the fake China jerseys. Maybe that's what I would buy, but I don't know. Rolexes go up in value. Yes, I understand. It's an investment. I get it. I'm not a watch guy, dude. I would buy something else that goes up in value. Like, I don't care about watches. I don't care about cars. I never cared about watches, never cared about cars. Art also, I don't give a shit about art. I don't give a shit about a lot of material stuff, dude. Like, I bought this MacBook and this iPad. These are the first, this is what, $3,500 I spent on myself. This is the first time I spent this much money on myself in a long time. I don't buy shit. I really don't. Travel experiences, yes. That's probably where I would spend. Honestly, that's where the money would go. But I wouldn't fly first class because I made a promise to you guys 10 months ago. If you remember on the channel, I said I would never fly first class if I get rich. I gotta maintain that promise. So cannot fly first class. That's we can't do that. Buy more stonks. Garcia up 4,300 today. Put in the chat. How much are you up? At one point, dude, I was up a lot of money at one point. At one point, I was up like, I think at one point I was up 25,000 or something. It was a lot. Now I'm not up 25,000, but it was a lot at one point. So put in the chat if you also want to put how much are you up today. Today was a good day. Today was a green day. Today was a very, very green day for the equity markets and for the crypto markets. And look, maybe tomorrow it all goes to shit, but at least right now we are seeing a lot of momentum build up right now with the equity markets. Let's take another look at a couple of other things. Oh yeah, here we go. Lazard's Ron Temple. This was actually a really good clip of him talking about the soft landing. So look, it's a green day. We might as well talk about a bullish thesis for why we're going to continue to be in the green, and that is if we can maintain this soft landing. June says, LOL, back of the Airbus sort of guy. But yeah, basically. I'm going to be on a bus, not a bus, airplane, January 16th. I'm flying to Cali, and this Boeing news has me in all types of different emotions. So hopefully, the seat doesn't fly off, and that's okay. All right, here we go. Soft landing, S&P 500, 2024.
Guest stays in that soft landing camp. He expects solid jobs numbers to continue as inflation slows to 2%, and he sees the first rate cut at the May meeting. Joining us now is Lazard Chief Market Strategist Ron Temple. Good to see you, Ron. And you have an interesting perspective because you also see all the activity or lack thereof that's been going on with deals and with companies. So you think the Fed's going to get away with this?
I think the Fed is basically pulling off, as you just said, the immaculate disinflation. This is better than any of us could have really hoped if you go back, say, 12, 18 months ago. And so I look at the data and I agree with Steve. I think this can be a story where demand can remain relatively strong. Supply will grow with demand. That's how a normal market economy works. And the Fed seems to be getting it done. Look at the unemployment rate. Look at the job data last week, 216,000 jobs. Every month this year, 2023, an average of 225,000 jobs. And yet inflation's gone from 9% in the middle of 22 to 3%. So this seems to be working very well.
So does that get rid of the notion that some people, you still hear this, that if the Fed's going to be cutting rates, things have to be going wrong in the economy. And there's no urgency right now with this kind of data to be cutting rates.
I don't buy that at all. In fact, I think the Fed's going to be cutting rates this year because inflation has come down so quickly. I mean, this is a great story.
I agree. Maybe it's not March, but I agree with what he's saying here.
Of a lot of strength in the household sector. If you think about the corporate sector, coming into this rate hike cycle, corporates had termed out their debt at very low interest rates. So it's a very positive story on both household and corporate side. And I think basically we're going to pull through this quite well and still have good growth this year.
So on that point, Goldman's note over the weekend suggests maybe earnings have the potential to surprise to the upside. Do you think that's true, or do you have doubts about some of the growth rates we're talking about?
I'm a little more skeptical of the idea. So the consensus for earnings this year is 11% growth for the S&P 500. I believe Goldman's number, by the way, is closer to 5%.
Yes.
So I'm a little more in that 5 to 8% camp on earnings growth, which is still good, considering that we had the sharpest rate hike cycle in 40 years. And so I'm positive, but I think we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. I think what's exciting, by the way, within the market right now is for the last 2 years, all of the earnings growth in the S&P 500 has been the top 7 stocks. Now it's time for that to broaden out as we move through this next stage of the monetary policy cycle.
So I'm curious what you see in terms of activity at Lazard and how that shapes your view.
I agree with him. Look, at the end of the day, I think he makes a lot of sense. His argument is that if inflation comes down, the Fed is going to have to cut rates. I also don't think it's March. I think the Fed is weird. Let's look at the CME watch tool. If they think it's still March. And if they think that's still happening. This is the website, by the way, for those that want to check it out. We got Billy up 32,000 today. Young, sick family up 5,500. Ray's up 2,600. Incredible stuff. So let's go to March. Right now, it's down a little bit. We have about 63% of people think that it's going to be a cut in March. Here's the website for those that want to check it out. 63% of people. So it's down a little bit today. Now, in May, we've got 93.4% of people, analysts, that think it's going to be cut. So obviously, May is more bullish than March. But look, 65% of people is still a big deal. I mean, I think it's going to be cut. So, I mean, market still thinks March is a chance. We'll just see if that happens. June up 16,000 today. Absolutely incredible. Market is still non-wishy-washy in my opinion. I agree. Market is still very wishy-washy because, well, let's look at some macro data. So let's talk about used cars. We haven't talked about used cars in a while, actually. And so let's discuss used cars. This is on macrodarts.com, new website I launched today. Again, I really do think every day, as long as the content keeps coming out, you guys will want to use this every single day and just go to it for easy to consume information. So here we go. United States used car prices fell. They decreased about 0.5%. So this is the smallest drop in the past 3 months, which is not necessarily bad because it's still coming down, but obviously it's the smallest drop within the past 3 months. So it is declining in terms of the rate of decline. And the prices declined by categories. Pickup and vans came down the most by 0.8%, luxury cars by 0.4%, mid-sized cars by 0.1%. Why does this matter? Used car prices is one of the major components of the CPI. Why? Because at the end of the day, most people cannot afford a brand new car, especially in this interest rate environment. People don't want to buy a brand new car. And if people don't want to buy a brand new car, they go to the used car market. Well, if they go to the used cars market, and a lot of people go to the used car market, then that means we have more inflation because there's less supply, more demand. And the auto worker strike stuff didn't help in September. It's still coming down. Used car prices have come down for the past 3 months. So to June's point, when she says the market is wishy-washy, it is wishy-washy because look at two macro components of data, okay? We've got used cars that continue to come down, which is very good from an inflation perspective, because that just means CPI should be coming down, PPI should be coming down. I don't know if December CPI is going to be less than 3.1. By the way, that's on Thursday. So this is a very exciting week in terms of what we have in data, very important week. And CPI could ruin this entire rally we're seeing. So that's something to take into consideration. But that's going to be good for CPI. But then you've got the jobs numbers that came out on Friday, 46,000 more jobs than expected, going back to this whole wishy-washy point. Bond yields sold off and yields went higher on the news of the job report being hotter than expected. And then the PMI report came out that was lower than expected, meaning the economy was contracting a little bit versus expanding. And then bonds got bought up, the yields went down because the market thought that, the inflation is not going to be an issue. And then you got the used car prices coming down. There's so many different macro components happening in a variety of different sectors. And this is why I launched Macro Darts, because there's so much stuff going on. It's exciting, it's interesting, but there's a lot of data to consume, that it does conclude, in my opinion, that the market is very wishy-washy until we see January CPI, because December is probably going to be a little bit more elevated. If January gets us to 2.8, 2.7, right now, Trueflation has inflation at, let's take a look at this. Trueflation has inflation at what? 2.2. I mean, look, man, if we get anywhere near that this year, the Fed doesn't think till 2026 we're getting to 2% inflation, by the way. That's what the Fed projects. Trueflation saying, no, we're here. If we get there, there's still $6 trillion in money markets. They're not gonna settle for a 3% return from the Fed or from the money markets or from a APY in a high yield savings account, because that yield is not going to be high anymore for savings. By the way, Robinhood increased their APY from 5% to 5.25% for 3 months if you're a new gold member. So a little bit more of a promotion. I don't know how the hell Robinhood's going to be profitable this quarter. If Robinhood becomes profitable this quarter, given the 1% match they've done on transferring your brokerage to them and the 5% APY, I don't know what Vlad did to become profitable, but either they grew massively, transaction revenues grew massively, or gold memberships grew massively. Something happened in the business for them to, because I don't expect them to be profitable. I just can't imagine, given what they're paying to get all these customers, that they're going to inch out gap profitability. If they do, I mean, the market's got to give Robinhood a little bit of credit there because in this quarter, if they crush their numbers and they get profits, that's a big deal. So InstaHeco says, I thought the Fed signaled rate cuts this year. They did. They signaled 75 basis points. The market is expecting 150 basis points. The market is expecting double of that. So that's why it's very wishy-washy, because if you get one set of data for inflation that's really bad, the Fed's not cutting. They're in no room. They don't need to cut, right? If they're beating inflation with a bat, they don't need to ruin that or take the chance of ruining that by cutting rates. It's when either something breaks in the economy or inflation falls off an absolute cliff where they really need to cut dramatically, because then they're going to induce a recession, or recession's already happening and they're making it much worse. So if growth is fine and inflation's moderately coming down, the Fed really doesn't have to cut, but the market's thinking they're going to cut. And that's why we're having this little debate in regards to what the market thinks versus what the Fed thinks as well. Davis says 25.50 is my guess for rate cuts starting in May. That would put us at 100 basis points for the year, which wouldn't be bad as well. When Fed cuts, then expect a recession. This is the interesting thing. Everyone keeps saying that. Yes, but also maybe that recession is either incredibly mild, given we had a rolling recession in 2022. This is Cathie's thesis. Or it's such an abnormal year, such an abnormal situation. We printed $7 trillion, then we had to raise rates, the highest we ever raised them in 40 years within 18 months. Maybe we avoid a recession too. I mean, the $7 trillion was abnormal. The raising rates and collapsing Silicon Valley Bank and then Credit Suisse and all that, and First Republic, that was abnormal. And then having this bank program where we saved the regionals, that was abnormal. And then actually having unemployment stay at 3.7 while inflation is falling off a cliff, that's abnormal. Maybe we don't have a recession. Maybe the normal thing would be to have a recession when the Fed starts cutting rates. Maybe we actually avoid that given the abnormalities of how this entire 3-year saga has played out. Maybe not. But in general, it's really interesting to kind of see how everything's playing out. And I guess we'll have to keep seeing where things go from there. Let's take another look at the equity markets and see what we've got going on in the after hours. So let's take a look at this. What was going to, okay, here, let's put this up right here. So we've got, where's Bitcoin? Bitcoin, 46,989. Look at that. It's still trying to get there. Still trying to get a little higher. Clean Spark up 5%, up a little bit in the after hours. Robinhood up about 0.24% in the after hours. Palantir flat after hours up 4.32% of the day. Coinbase 159 up 3% of the day. QQQ up 2% on the day. Amazon, SoFi, yeah, nothing too crazy in the after hours. Companies are still doing fine. Disney is up 0.72% of the day. Disney has had some issues with some of their value investors that are demanding a little bit more from them, but Disney is still up. Netflix is up 485. Zoom is up. DNA is up. Where's Cathie's ARK? Cathie's ARK, by the way, she has about 8 million shares of Palantir now. I was looking throughout her ETF, so she has a decent amount as she bought 1 million shares last Friday, up 2.82% on the day. And where's Beto? She bought 4 million shares of Beto, ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF. This sucker's up 6.73% on the day. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense that that's up as well. Rocket Lab's up all-time high. Why is that happening? Someone said, is Robinhood Gold worth the fee? Yes. You get 5% APY. You get the lowest rates on margin. You get 3% match on your Roth IRA, and you get instant transfers up to $50,000 a day. And you get Morningstar research on any stock you want. I mean, you had level 2 NASDAQ book data for $5 a month, dude. There's a lot of shit we pay subscriptions for $5 a month. If you're using Robinhood, it's a no-brainer to do that. 3.6% higher for Rocket Labs. Why is this happening? Why are they up? They were up 3% of the day. Now they're up another 4% after hours. What news came up on Rocket Labs? I think someone put in the chat. Rocket Lab to host discussion of government constellation award. Okay. I don't know why that means they're up that much, but did they get an award or they're a host? I know they got a $515 million contract last week. And that's what the market was excited about. Rocket Lab's interesting, man. It's very, very interesting. Oh, no. Guys, there's a PR. No one said this in the chat. You guys are slacking. No one said this in the chat. Here we go. Here's a PR on Rocket Lab right now. Look at this. Rocket Lab makes its defense prime debut with a $500 million contract to design and build satellite constellation for Space Development Agency. Wow. Oh, wait, no, this is the same contract they got. Why? Sorry. Is this the same contract they got last week? Is this the same one? Old news. Sorry. It came out today, January 8th. It PR'd today. Sorry. I thought that was new news. I was like, damn, this sounds very familiar to the same contract they got last time. Okay. So but honestly, maybe that's why they're up after hours as well, because sometimes the market just doesn't know until the PR hits the Bloomberg terminals. And if it's hitting right now, January 8th, 4:05 p.m., that also might be a reason the stock is up a little bit. But yeah, nonetheless, Rocket Labs, it's continuing to do well. Bot says, is that the only revenue Robinhood has? $5 a month? No, Robinhood makes about $470 million a quarter right now. Half of that is from transaction revenues. So people actually trading, they do something called payment for order flow. That's how they make money. And then also they have their net interest income. They have like $5.4 billion in cash that they're stuffing into short-term treasuries, and they're bringing in about $250 million off that. When those interest rates come down, the idea is transaction volumes go higher. We saw this back in 2021. And so Robinhood should have more momentum. On top of that, crypto notional trading volumes are up about 75% month over month from November to October, which means they're getting more crypto volume as well, which is more payment for order flow. They also take a 35 basis points fee on every dollar of Bitcoin that is traded, which is the lowest amount of fees in the entire country, in the entire world. So they also make some money off crypto fees as well. Nvidia. Let's look at Nvidia. Nvidia still going higher, 524 after hours. My goodness, up 0.38% of the day. Up 0.38% on the day. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is, I asked in the morning, but you can put it again in the chat. Put in the chat if you own Nvidia and if you've owned it for a while. I mean, this is just, dude, this is big news for Nvidia. You can't move Nvidia, and it's not easy to move Nvidia like this. It's not easy to move Nvidia like this. This is 6% on a day. Again, we talked about why they're up, but they announced a bunch of new products, and the market thinks that generative AI maybe is a bigger opportunity than the internet. I don't even know what that means, dude. I don't even know. If you're an Nvidia shareholder, I don't even know if you can tell me what that means, but it means something to the market. Bitcoin, 47,000. Bitcoin now up almost 8% on the day. Bitcoin, 47,000. Manu says, I got 3 shares. Price is 380 where I got in. Shit. Look, I don't care if it's 3 shares, 3,000 shares. If you're up, you're up. I have this one Robinhood call option I was up 200% on. It was one option. It was up 200%. I sold it the other day, but like, I don't care. I made 200%. Even if it was $100, it was $100 on 200%. So honestly, in speaking in without joking, I think, well, let's put it in the chat. Let me actually make this a poll. This is actually an interesting poll. I think I know what a lot of you are going to say, but I'd be curious to see if the other direction. Okay, so here's the poll. Which one? Would you rather be up 10% on a big position or up 350% on a small position? I think I know what everyone's going to pick, but maybe I'm wrong. Would you rather be up 10% on 100 grand or up 350% on 4 grand? What would you rather want? Oh, wow. It was almost 50-50. Why is it 50-50? I thought everyone would pick up 10% on a big position because you just want more money, right? At the end of the day, 10% up on 100 grand is way cooler than up, 250% on 3 grand or 2 grand or whatever, Profit is profit, up 10% on a milli. Everyone says A, but let's see them average up. Yeah, that's the hard part. 350% for the premiums. No, Chris has the right answer in the chat. 350% for my freaking ego, dude. That's the actual answer. To be honest, dude, that's the answer. That's what being up that much is. It makes you think you're a good investor at the end of the day. The gains don't really matter as much as the screenshot. So up 350% means you know at a time. That's true. That means you know at a time. Ego to 0. Nonetheless, look, I'd rather be up 10% on a small amount of money. It's just more money at the end of the day. We want to build big positions. Okay, I think that is it for me today, guys, on the market close. I have a new podcast with Chris that's launching at 5:30 in 1 hour, 5:30 to 6:30. This podcast, I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. It is pure macro news. And today we're going to be discussing cacao futures. So we're going to be talking about why Hershey's fell about 20% in the past 3 months. And it's going to be purely a macro-based analysis for Hershey's. And Hershey's actually up 2% of the day. And we're going to be talking about what happened. I think it'll be fun stuff. Every Monday, 5:30, 6:30, Chris and I will be doing macro. Now, I'm hoping Chris is not asleep. If he's not asleep, then the podcast will happen. If he is asleep, then the podcast might not happen. So we'll see. Chris is a busy guy. He works. I'm pretty sure he'll be awake. But if he's not awake, the podcast won't happen. So super excited for that. And I think you guys will enjoy it because it'll be just fun stuff every Monday discussing about Macro Monday. Garcia says this is becoming a 24-hour finance network. That is the goal. One life. Let's get to it and let's work our asses off. Final thing I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone who has followed Macro Darts on Twitter. Really did not know what to expect launching this today. I thought it was a decent idea and I'm going to work my ass off trying to build it, but we have 818 followers. Those are 818 real people that subscribed to the Twitter account that followed. So that means a lot to me. That really means that there's 818 people is very humbling. Did not expect that many people to follow, but I think people want the information and I think people are going to enjoy seeing the information in their feed. Again, the basic pitch is no clickbait, no opinions, no politics, no headlines, no sensationalism. If you just care about improving your financial information diet by having real news every day that you can see, you can digest, and then you can make your own decisions, hopefully this is a website that you tune into every day. It's going to be updated about 5-6 times a day. And the Twitter account hopefully is something that you guys will enjoy as well. So Macro Darts, that is it. And I'm just so humbled by the response that we got. I'm like, really, it gets emotional because whenever you launch anything into the world, like anything, I don't care if it's a small business, a lemonade stand, whatever you do, just seeing anyone have any level of support and genuine happiness that you're trying to do something It really means a lot. So we got a lot of work to do. I think this account can be one of the largest followed financial media accounts on the planet. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there to expand. I have a lot of ideas in my head, but right now, that is the basic concept of the website. And I think people will use it. And if people use it, then it'll be pretty cool. Macrodarts.com, Nick Piercy, macrodarts.com. Okay, one quick question. Richie says, Amit, do you think you'll invest in any altcoins or are you in Bitcoin only? I'm going to let you guys in on a secret because you guys are on the market close. And I am very thankful that you joined the market close. Not everyone joins the market close, but you guys do. By the way, if you got to this point of the end of the market close, if you're watching after, please comment. If you actually got to the end of the market close, please comment. And also, if you're a first time or first week viewer, first month viewer, because I know we got some new subscribers, comment as well if you just got into this. I invested $500 in an altcoin. Okay. I got a tip from a friend. My friend, let's just say he is up. I don't even want to say it. I don't want to say it because I don't think I have the right to say it, but he is up. He put some money into an altcoin and he is up a lot. And I don't want to say how much he's up because like you guys wouldn't actually believe how little he put in. When I mean little, I mean like pocket change and how much you guys wouldn't fathom. Maybe if I get his permission after he sells, I will tell the story, but you would not fathom. You would not fathom how much he's up. Okay. So he's texting me and he shows me the returns. Like I see the screenshots, okay? I'm talking about a lot from a little bit of money because he got in right at the right time. And he gives me a tip for a new altcoin. Now I'm thinking, okay, this guy is one of the best investors of all time, given the return that when I mean best investments of all time, when I get his permission to tell you it, you guys will not believe this investment. So he gives me a hint to some new altcoin. He's like, throw something in there. I'm like, all right, fuck it, dude. I'll put in $500. Within 2 weeks, that sucker goes to 4,000. Okay. Within 2 weeks, that sucker goes to 4,000 fucking dollars. Okay. Now, I wasn't going to sell because I still believe that the crypto rally is ahead of us and that if the crypto rally is ahead of us, then it'll be okay. Now that $500 investment is worth $200. Okay. This is the problem with these fucking altcoins. They don't mean anything. It's like you really got to be there in the right moment. And so it went from up 4,000, which is what, a 10x, 8x, to down 50%. Now, even if I wanted to sell and take my $4,000, this altcoin is so alt. It's so gothic emo alternative. Okay. We're talking about like Paramore gothic emo type of alternative coin. It's not even listed on exchanges where I could sell it. The shit I had to do to buy it, I had to go to some website called Radium. I had to buy Solana. I had to take the Solana, convert it into the Radium. Then I had to go to some fucking wallet. I had to come create the wallet. And then I had to buy the fucking thing. I was like, all right, dude, I finally bought it. You can't even track the coin. So I had to say, hey, like, you tell me when the coin is up because I don't even know when the coin is up. And then he texted me like 5 days later. He's like, by the way, you're up 8x. I'm like, what's the flying fuck? How am I up 8x? And I was like, I can't sell it. He's like, nope, it's such an altcoin. You can't even sell the fucking coin. And I was like, all right, so this is the world I'm into right now. This is like, now he can sell his because his is a less alternative than mine. Mine's is like a derivative of his alternative coin. And like, you guys would not believe how much money he's up. Now, the other thing is the dude is not selling. I begged him to sell when he was up an extraordinary amount of money. He didn't sell. He was up even more. I said, dude, take something off the table. He said, nope. He was up even more. I mean, like, the amount he was up blew my mind. The amount he got up the first time I told him to sell, and I looked like a dumbass for telling him to sell because he was up even more. It blew my mind. And then at the top, now he's not up that much. But then at the top, when I told him, like, please, for the love of God, take something. He was like, nope, I'm not selling. That return, you guys would not imagine. You would not imagine. You would not imagine this. I don't want to say until I get his permission. He doesn't tweet about it. You know, he's very secretive about it, so I don't want to say it. But I will tell you guys one day. I don't know if he's taking any profits, but the point is he's up a lot of money. And I was like, you know what? I'll take $500 and I'll be up a lot of money. And I was at one point. And then the alternative coin just went back to down. Is this a new comedy bit? Dude, no, it's not a comedy bit. It's not a comedy bit. It's not a comedy bit. So it's stupid, dude. It's $500. I threw it into some stupid coin. It was just for fun. It wasn't that serious at the end of the day. That's why I'm not mentioning the coin. That's why I'm not pumping it. I don't want, like, I'm just saying, like, I just did it for fun because he was up so much fucking money. I was like, well, I'm just going to take his advice and I'll throw it into a coin. I didn't throw thousands of dollars. Like, it's $500. Worst case, I lose it. I'll be okay. But if it gives the return that he gave, then it'll be okay. So can he just sell his directly though, or does he have to convert? No, he can sell directly. It's actually listed, so he can sell. So he'll be okay. But yeah, I genuinely, I don't have his permission to tell you guys. So I'm sorry that I'm leaving you guys in the dark. I will tell you guys one day. I don't want to tell you because I don't have his permission. He doesn't tweet about it. He's very secretive about this stuff. But nonetheless, he's up a lot. And the only thing you should take from this is that this is how crazy crypto is going right now. Like this Bitcoin 47,000, this Bitcoin goes to 60,000. He's going to be up probably double what he's up right now, just given the whole, altcoin rally that will happen. And that'll be a lot. So rare you can't sell it. Yeah, look, it's a stupid, shitty alternative coin. Okay, like it's so dumb. But I was just like, fuck it. Well, maybe it gets listed one day and maybe I'll get a return. So it was not that serious of a gamble for me. It was $500, but it was right before Christmas, and I was just like, well, let's see if it happens, and it ended up going higher. So long story, don't buy shit coins. Yes. The only reason I brought up this story, Kelly, is because someone asked me, hey, are you invested in altcoins versus Bitcoin? And I gave the truth of what I'm invested in, even if it's a very small portion of my overall portfolio. But obviously the investment has not worked out so far, even if it did work out for 5 days. And even if I wanted to profit on those 5 days, I couldn't even sell during those 5 days. I appreciate Amit's alternative comedy. Okay, we're ending the stream. That's ridiculous. We're ending the stream. Thanks, Garcia. We are ending the stream. We're ending the stream. Thank you, everybody. Macro podcast with Chris starting at 5:30, which we will not be discussing altcoins. We're going to be discussing cacao futures, which are also really interesting. Then we got Palantir deep dives. We're going to talk about their new partnership today, 8:30 p.m. And then we got Finance Junkies, 9 p.m. That's it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'll see you guys in the morning, 8:45 a.m. And I'll see you later today. David says, don't listen to Kelly. Amit, it was a great story. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that because I thought it was a good story as well. I'm respecting the privacy of my friend while giving you guys the overall ethos of the story, with the philosophy being don't buy shitcoins. Unless you get the hint from him and you buy it really, 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 really early, and then you're up like a lot of money. All right, that's it for me. Thank you guys. I will see you guys later today. Bye-bye.